Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. So today I want to go ahead and cover Diet Culture Rebel. I might do a couple more of these throughout this diet culture era because I don't know, it's kind of interesting. I feel like it brings up interesting conversation. Full disclosure, I don't really like Diet Culture Rebel, but I am interested in hearing her take on this, on intuitive eating, and I want to give my response for this. So let's go ahead and look at this. Intuitive eating tips you aren't hearing anywhere else because you deserve more than just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. Okay. Well, let me go ahead and just give my take on intuitive eating in general. I don't really believe in it as far as for the amount. I do believe in it when it comes to macros, but again, I wouldn't call it intuitive eating because you're not relying on your intuition. You're relying on your satiety signals to guide you because those can be different from person to person. Certain macronutrient ratios can help one person versus the other. And I think it's really important to, at least as somebody in my position, I don't advocate for all of these hardline rules and all this type of stuff because people are at different places in life. I'd say for me, like the hardest rule that I advocate for is like really the basics of not just eating tons of seed oils, not smoking or consuming a bunch of marijuana, and not drinking a bunch of alcohol. To me, those are kind of like baseline things. But again, everything's a gradient. If things are in moderation, it can be different for different types of people. If we're talking about somebody who's very chronically ill or somebody who has fatty liver, those are kind of a no-go for all those things. If we're talking about somebody who's diabetic, then you're going to have to be stricter in terms of carb consumption and exercise for sure. You're going to have to figure out a balance or do your food combinations or manage that condition. Then it can be even stricter. But I'm of the opinion that the less healthy someone is, the more strict they have to be. And if you're younger and healthier or like barely overweight or whatever, it's like different. It is different. Like, I think you can get away with the protein bar with some seed oils in it. I don't necessarily think that it's like ideal, but there's things that I do that are not ideal either. Like I have Mike and Ike's a lot. I love that candy. It helps me. I feel energized when I have it. And that's about it. You know what I'm saying? But it's not like I'm going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, it's a health food. Like, no. I think when it comes to dieting, we all fall short. There's things that we do. I was having fat-free whipped cream, for example. God only knows what that is. But I'm just kidding. I don't even really know, to be honest. I mean, I do. Like, I've looked at it, so it's fine. But it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there is a certain amount of frankenfood, especially in a vanity weight era, that sometimes can help you just feel somewhat sane or somewhat stimulated while you're very bored in a super strict diet, basically, which she would be totally against. What I say is try not to rely on diet culture foods for a very, very long time. Don't do that forever. I see a lot of people that push these things. They push you to eat that way for all eternity. I don't think that that's good. I think you should go back to real food as soon as possible and just have things. And there are certain moments where I've had to not have diet culture foods. Like, for example, today I had like 3/4 of a pound of chuck beef. So it's like very fatty. It's like a very fatty amount, it's a fatty cut of beef because I needed some fat because I don't have fat every day or like I don't have it all the time. So sometimes you have to balance it with non-diet culture foods too to keep you going. And in that sense, yes, I would believe in intuitive eating. Like if I feel like, oh, I'm a little bit too low fat these, I haven't had a lot of fat in a couple weeks. I need to have some now. That's something that I would agree with. You know what I'm saying? Try to be as balanced as you can, or as balanced as what works for you, essentially. As far as nutrition, vitamins, minerals, etc., I will always advocate to monitor these things and make sure that you're getting everything. I recently had to really up my iron because of certain issues within class 1 obesity. It was causing issues with iron. And even though I was almost getting enough, my body needs more. So here we are, you know. So be aware of that too. If you are obese, even class 1 obese, it does affect things like iron absorption. If you're class 3 obese, it affects a lot of stuff. So if you're super morbidly obese, your digestive system doesn't work as well, period. So you really need to prioritize nutrition quite a bit because you're likely needing a lot of nutrition and your body is having a hard time absorbing it at the same time. So again, I think intuitive eating, it has its weaknesses, but it also has its place. So let's continue. Don't rely on hunger and fullness cues right away. If you've been ignoring your body's signals for years, they don't magically reappear the second you, quote, eat intuitively. They need time and consistent nourishment for you to get back in touch with them. So I don't really like this language. I feel like it's too squishy and it doesn't actually talk about what she's trying to talk about. What I would say is that if you have a toxic ritualistic past, you likely have some hormonal imbalance. It depends. Typically, the thyroid is a part of it. I talk about that a lot on this channel because it's like completely ignored by most people, and if anything, it's made fun of a lot. But when you do these toxic ritualistic behaviors, it does affect your thyroid, and oftentimes, the vast majority of the time, it is nutrient deficiencies that lead to a thyroid issue or lead to a lack of production. It's usually that. And people think of it as like, oh, I can just eat some veggies throughout the week and it's fine. It's like, no, you have to go in deep and have like very nutrient dense foods for quite a few months. Like I would say probably even like 6 months. You should be having, some people like organ meats, for example, but I'm just talking like some real food. So whether that's like actual cheese, for example, that has nutrition in it, that isn't like fake cheese, having some actual fat, and especially fat soluble vitamins that a lot of people lack within the toxic ritualistic. You have to build up those stores. Get some sun, try to get some vitamin D, really think about those fat soluble vitamins. That's a big one. And then you want to think about like your minerals, like especially selenium and iodine and things like that are not really talked about very often. And so, sometimes things like shellfish can be really helpful with stuff like that. Or, look at what is extremely bioavailable. I wouldn't mess around with, getting selenium from Brazil nuts if your digestion is fucked up. I'd be like, let's get it from seafood, get it from something easier to digest. Like, also be aware, like, if your digestion is trashed, you're not able to get as much from plant foods and stuff that has like protection around the nutrients. So you're going to probably need more animal products and things like that, which I know that pisses off a lot of people to hear, but I don't really care. I'm just going to tell you what it is. You're probably going to need that type of thing. You might have to have a bit less fiber if your digestion is trashed. For example, like eating a bunch of whole wheat, it might be too much. Eating a bunch of kale, it might be too much. Like you have to consider where your body's at. That being said, if you're totally healthy and your digestion is strong, I don't think there's any reason to avoid like whole wheat and stuff like that. Unless if you're just concerned about estrogen, but that's like a whole other conversation that I don't really want to get into right now. But the point is, if you tolerate it well, if you're fine, if you're not hungry after having it, then I don't think you're like a bad person because you had it. Like, it doesn't fucking matter. Put to you that way. Kale is very anti-thyroid, so I would just be careful with that. Even when you cook it, it's still very anti-thyroid. Whereas something like spinach, if you cook it, it does get rid of a lot of oxalates and stuff. So there's like a lot of nuance there. I would just be aware of it. Just be aware of it and consider it. It doesn't have to like determine if you eat something or not. But again, if you're super hypo and your digestion is trashed, it might not be the right thing for you at that time. But if you're not, then it might be fine, you know? So I think it's just really important to assess where you're at physically and then make decisions. I just think that a lot of the health culture foods, they're promoted towards people that are not healthy at all, and it's actually hard to digest them and like utilize them in the body. So I would just be aware that that is like a weird bias, whereas like if somebody's already healthy, they can get nutrients from those veggies or from those nuts or from this or from, if you know, it's like they have a high amount of stomach acid, it's better for them, you know what I'm saying? Or they don't have crazy IBS where it's like they're having diarrhea all the time. I'll just be real about it, you know what I mean? So you have to consider those things. If your digestion is strong, then you can get nutrients from a lot of food. You know, if your liver is good, then you might be able to tolerate a little bit more estrogen in the diet. You might not have to avoid soy all the time if you have a strong liver, for example. Whereas if you don't, you know, I think you probably should. So I think it's important to look at it, look at where you're at, and assess, and don't project where you're at onto everybody. I think we lose the individualization within diet culture sometimes, and it becomes this competition and this comparison, and it goes into that toxic ritualistic comparison that we talk about a lot, which is not normal. That is pathological. So let's continue. Tip 2, build a loose meal and snack structure. Think breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and a couple snacks. Not a rigid schedule, just enough consistency to help your cues return and keep your body from staying stuck in survival mode. Again, survival mode is too squishy. I wish that she would describe it as like hypothyroid, basically, so that people actually know what they're looking at and what they're working on. And again, even something like fatty liver, I think should be mentioned. But as far as just looking at a loose meal and snack structure, I mean, maybe it depends on where you're at. If you're actively trying to lose weight, then I do think you're going to need to count. Typically, I think the vast majority of people will need to count. If not, then yeah, maybe a loose meal and snack structure could work. Like most of the time for me, I'll have like two or three meals on the day. It depends. But it's just whatever works practically for my schedule. And it's not like I don't take it that seriously, if that makes any sense. So I don't think it doesn't really matter. It's just you need to figure out what you can personally do, because a lot of people do like intermittent fasting. There have been times where I do and then times where I don't, times where it helped and times where it hurt. You have to figure it out with where you're at. Just don't try to gaslight yourself into saying it does work if it's not working for you. Like if you're getting really hungry, then it's just not working, which some people won't be able to do it because they might just be too hungry or too low energy. So, but at this point, not a lot of points in the journey, I could do intermittent fasting. I didn't do like a strict schedule, but I wouldn't have breakfast for some of it. And then some of it I had to have breakfast, you know? So allow things to change. I think that's my biggest thing. That's something I've always advocated for. Allow change. Allow things to shift. Unconditional permission to eat is great, but you can ease in. Yes, allowing yourself to eat what you want when you want it is part of a peaceful relationship with food. But for a lot of people, going 0 to 100 here can feel like too much too soon. It's okay to get there gradually. So I don't really know about this. I don't see how this would be helpful for BINGE specifically. I think that it's good to be physically rooted when we're eating, or asking the question, like, why are we eating right now? Like, if it's some kind of emotional reason or a psychological response, then I think it's not a good reason to eat. I've always said never eat because of anxiety. That's a rule that I think anybody with this problem should implement. Do not eat because you are anxious, ever. Never again. Because that's a path to death. I'll just put it to you that way. Because you can be anxious about anything and everything all the time. So you don't ever want to start that, or you don't want to continue that, period. So that is a condition on eating. So I don't agree with her, period. I just don't. I don't agree with that. Learn what intuitive eating actually is. Don't skip the step. Listen to podcasts like mine. Read the intuitive eating book. Follow credible professionals. Intuitive eating is not just stop dieting and eat whatever. Well, they try to have like some kind of emotional or like psychosomatic aspects within it, which I think it can be incorporated into a weight loss plan. Like I said, is particularly with macros or with looking at, well, even if this food is supposedly a health food, I can't digest it that well, or I'm having a hard time with it, or it's making me hungrier. Like, acknowledge that can happen too within your body, and that it's okay. But other than that, I don't think it's very useful. I just don't. I think a lot of times it's too open-ended. It can feel too weird to somebody in the toxic ritualistic. Like, I don't know if it actually helps that much. I think like taking other various steps, like I know for BINGE, a really good one is to suggest to people that if you want something, like if you want pizza or cake, set a condition that you need to make it yourself. And that can be helpful because it still puts control on you. You can control the ingredients. Like, you can even tell somebody, like, you have even more control over it. You can decide how much sugar's in it, how much this is in it, what type of oil you're using, right? Like, these type of things. You can take back control or take back ownership over what you're eating if you're actually making something yourself. And that can be really helpful and actually be done if somebody's willing to take that step, because then you're putting that condition. So then if you really want something, you can make it yourself. And if that barrier is there, it might be enough for you to be like, well, I don't actually really want it because I don't want to cook it. I don't want to bake a cake right now. So then you don't actually want it that bad. Or you're not craving it or whatever. It's just like a anxiety spell type of vibe, which you don't want that. So I think like those type of barriers can be more helpful. Like when you're starting out, like I said, I do think for most people, you should be working towards counting. I think it just, like, my position is it takes the magic out of it, takes the mystery out of it, and you want it to be as little as, like, you want as little mysticism in your diet as possible. You want it to be realistic as possible. So that's where I just think intuitive eating falls short. Stop being an a-hole to yourself about your eating. Seriously, would you talk to your best friend the way you talk to yourself after eating? Probably not, so I say it to you. Your self-talk shapes your relationship with food and health more than you think. So I don't like some of the language here. It's too squishy. Again, we don't have a relationship with food. We consume food. As far as being an asshole to yourself, I do think that is a part of a toxic ritualistic cycle. there's a lot of shame-based motivation within a toxic ritualistic cycle. And sometimes you'll see this in Gen Pop where they'll say like, oh, we should shame people into losing weight, or we should shame people into getting in shape. And sometimes people within the toxic ritualistic will even say, please shame me so that I'll get it together. You don't want to be relying on that. I think shame is a manipulated emotion within the toxic ritualistic. It's not reliable anymore. Like, I think you need to just kind of get rid of it, or just not, like, you need to try to find a balance again, because so much within the toxic ritualistic is about being incredibly shameful or shameless, or creating these artificial like taboos and things like that. And oh gosh, I had this now, and ooh, I feel so free now because now I'm having it. Like, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's a lot of mental games to keep a cycle going. So it's like, you know, don't hide what you're eating. Don't do anything like that. Like, don't be ashamed of it. Like, you're eating it, be about it. Stand by it. If you're eating it, then stand by it type of vibe, because it's just creating this, it's like a stupid thing. It's just very stupid. It's stupid, and it's for the cycle itself. It's for the problem itself. Like, that's what it is. It's not about, oh, what are other people going to say? It's not about that. It's about a game you're playing with yourself. So just stop. Like, get the emotion out of it. Get the emotion out of eating. It's not an emotional experience. Maybe it can be lightly pleasurable or lightly gross or something, but it's not this deep guttural experience that you're making it. It really isn't. I think you're over dramatizing it in your brain. And you need to always be mindful of that. You're giving it an emotional quality that doesn't exist. You didn't kill somebody, you ate a pizza. You get me? So what should be the emotion you feel? You should feel like, oh gosh, that was a bit too much. I feel kind of too full. Okay, that's it. You see, that's literally it. And you don't let that running commentary go and and it's like this long standing thing. It should be like one sentence, like, oh, that was a little too much. But you feel the disgust and you think, oh, I'm really full. You don't turn that disgust onto yourself. A lot of people mismanage that signal, that fullness cue in their brain within the toxic ritualistic, and they make it disgust about themselves or how they look rather than the actual food. You're feeling disgusted towards the food because you ate too much. That's what it is. If food feels complicated, I got free training, blah, blah. Okay, so I guess we'll leave it here. We'll make this one a bit shorter. Let me know what you guys think. As always, say whatever. I really think diet culture in general is pretty choose your own adventure. People have different goals. People are at different places. And I think that we always need to individuate, think for ourselves, look at what works for us at this time as much as we can, and not hold other people to our standards, and not hold other people to what we're doing and that kind of stuff. Like, I think we always need to remain focused on ourselves and not be constantly comparing all the time. So with that, you guys, I'm going to go. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc., week. I'll see you guys later. Bye.